Welcome back. You are listening to the home of forbidden romances. Prepare yourself, because tonight's story will leave you breathless. The lock clicked shut behind me with the heavy, final thud of a prison sentence, engaging the magnetic seal that cut us off from the rest of the frantic city. I didn't even have time to release the breath held tight in my chest before the command cut through the silence like a whip crack. Take off your pants. The words hung in the frigid air conditioning of the penthouse office, absurd and terrifying. Cassius Thorne, the dragon of the capital, the heir to $1 trillion empire, and the man I was sworn to protect and secretly contracted to kill, didn't look up from his mahogany desk. He was signing a document, his fountain pen scratching aggressively against the paper. The sweeping floor-to-ceiling windows behind him framed the neon-drenched skyline of Neo Viridia, casting a halo of artificial light around his broad shoulders. He looked like a god of commerce and cruelty, perfectly composed in his charcoal three-piece suit. "I beg your pardon, sir." My voice was steady, a testament to years of training in the Black Lotus Syndicate, but my heart hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird. Cassius stopped writing. He set the pen down with deliberate, agonizing slowness. When he finally lifted his eyes to meet mine, the air in the room seemed to vanish. His irises were the color of frozen obsidian, sharp enough to cut glass, and right now, they were drilling into my soul. "I do not repeat myself, Julian," he said, his voice dropping an octave, vibrating with a dangerous, predatory calm. "Take them off. Now. Or do I have to call security to strip you?" My hand twitched toward the hidden holster at the small of my back. A reflex, nothing more. I was Julian Vane, the perfect executive assistant. I was efficient, invisible, and loyal. That was the mask I had worn for 3 years. But beneath the starch of my white collar, I was bleeding. "Sir, this is inappropriate." I deflected, shifting my weight. A jolt of white-hot agony shot up my left thigh, nearly buckling my knee. I clenched my jaw, forcing my face to remain a mask of polite confusion. "If there is a disciplinary issue regarding my performance, the only issue," Cassius interrupted, standing up. He moved around the desk with the silent, terrifying grace of a panther stalking a wounded deer, "is that my personal assistant is currently bleeding out on my Persian rug and thinks he's clever enough to hide it." The blood drained from my face, unrelated to the wound. He knew. "I don't know what you're—" "Drop the act, Julian," Cassius roared, the facade of the cool CO shattering instantly. He crossed the distance between us in 2 long strides, grabbing me by the lapels of my suit jacket and slamming me back against the heavy oak door. The impact jarred my leg, and a gasp tore from my throat. Cassius didn't let go. His face was inches from mine, his breathing ragged. For the first time, I saw something other than arrogance in his eyes. I saw panic. Pure, unadulterated terror. "I smell the copper," he hissed, his grip tightening until his knuckles turned white. "I saw the way you favored your left side when you walked in. I saw the micro-tremor in your hand when you poured the tea this morning. You took the bullet meant for me at the gala, didn't you? You stupid, reckless fool." He wasn't asking for sex. He was demanding trioff. The adrenaline that had kept me upright for the hour-long drive from the gala finally evaporated. My vision blurred at the edges. "It scratched me, Cassius. That's all. I handled the shooter." "You handled the shooter," Cassius repeated mockingly, though his hands were already moving, dropping to my belt buckle. His fingers, usually so steady, were trembling slightly. "You killed a highly trained assassin in a tuxedo, dumped the body, and drove me home while losing a pint of blood. And you didn't say a word." "It's my job," I whispered, my strength failing. I slumped against the door, sliding down as my legs gave out. Cassius caught me. He didn't let me fall. He went to his knees with me, disregarding the creases in his impeccably tailored trousers. His hands worked frantically at my belt, unbuckling it, unzipping the fly. As he peeled the fabric of my dress trousers down, the scent of iron filled the small space between us. The makeshift bandage I had wrapped around my thigh in the gala bathroom was soaked through, a crimson stain blossoming against the pale skin of my thigh. The bullet had grazed the artery. Another inch, and I would have been dead before the dessert course. Cassius stared at the wound, his jaw working. He looked up at me, his eyes burning with a furious intensity that made my skin prickle. "You are fired," he growled, ripping his silk tie off his neck. "Sir." I blinked, the room spinning. "You are fired as my assistant," he clarified, wrapping the tie around my leg above the wound and pulling it tight. I cried out, arching my back, my fingers digging into his shoulders. "Because from this moment on, you are not my employee. You are my charge. And if you ever put your life on the line for mine again without my permission, I will kill you myself. Do you understand?" Darkness swarmed my vision. The last thing I felt was Cassius lifting me into his arms, carrying me bridal style toward the private elevator that led to the medical suite, muttering curses and prayers against my hair. Waking up was a slow, heavy process, like swimming through molasses. The sharp scent of antiseptic and the dull throb in my leg were my first companions. I opened my eyes to the dim, amber glow of the master bedroom in Cassius's penthouse. I wasn't in the guest room. I was in his bed. The sheets were black silk, cool against my skin. I tried to sit up, but a heavy hand on my chest pushed me back down. "Don't." Cassius's voice came from the bedside chair. He had discarded his jacket and rolled up his sleeves, revealing forearms that were surprisingly muscular for a man who spent his days signing mergers. He looked exhausted, a tumbler of whiskey loosely held in his hand. "How long?" I rasped. My throat felt like sandpaper. 2 days, he answered, taking a sip of the amber liquid. "The doctor said you lost a lot of blood. He stitched you up. You'll have a scar, but you'll keep the leg." 2 days. Panic flared in my chest. The Black Lotus expected a check-in every 24 hours. If I missed 2, "I need my phone," I said, struggling against his hand again. "Cassius, I need to make a call." "No calls," he said flatly. "I've locked down the penthouse. No signals in or out. We are ghosts, Julian." "You don't understand," I pleaded, the desperation leaking into my voice. "There are people. If I don't check in." "The Black Lotus?" The name hung in the air, heavy and poisonous. I froze. The silence that stretched between us was louder than a scream. Cassius swirled his whiskey, watching the liquid vortex. "I ran a background check on you the day I hired you, Julian. Clean. Too clean. No family. No high school yearbook photos, a degree from a university that burned down 10 years ago. You were a phantom." He looked at me, his expression unreadable. "It took me a year to find the cracks. The encrypted messages you thought you deleted. The offshore accounts." My heart went cold. "You knew?" "I knew you were a mole," he admitted softly. "I knew you were sent to destroy Thorn Enterprises from the inside. To find my weaknesses. To kill me when the order came." "Why?" I whispered. "Why did you keep me? Why did you let me get this close?" Cassius stood up and walked to the edge of the bed. He looked down at me, and the vulnerability in his eyes shattered me. "Because I was waiting." "Waiting for what?" "Waiting for you to decide who you belonged to," he said, his voice rough. "Them, or me." He leaned down, placing a hand on the mattress beside my head, caging me in. "For 3 years, you have served me. You organized my life. You guarded my secrets. And 3 nights ago, when that assassin leveled a suppressed pistol at my heart, you didn't hesitate. You stepped in front of the bullet." He brushed a strand of hair away from my forehead, his touch searing. "You made your choice, Julian. You chose me. It's not that simple." I choked out, turning my face away. "They won't let me go, Cassius. The Lotus. They don't accept resignations. By saving you, I signed my own death warrant. And by keeping me here, you've signed yours." "Let them come," Cassius said, a cruel, arrogant smirk touching his lips, the expression that terrified his board of directors. "I have more money than God and a private security force that rivals the military. But more importantly," he grabbed my chin, forcing me to look at him, "I am incredibly possessive of my things. And you, Julian Vane, are mine. You surrendered your rights the moment you bled on my floor." "I am not a thing," I countered, though the fight was weak. "I am a liability. You are the only person in this city who hasn't tried to sell me out for a percentage," he argued. "You're staying. Now drink this." He grabbed a glass of water from the nightstand and held it to my lips. I drank, the cool water soothing my throat. But my mind was racing. He didn't understand the Lotus. Money didn't stop them. Armies didn't scare them. They were shadows. And shadows could get in anywhere. The attack came at 3 a.m. the following night. It started with the silence. The subtle hum of the penthouse's air filtration system cut out. Then, The ambient lights of the security panel by the door blinked from green to dead black. I was awake instantly. The instincts ingrained in me since childhood overrode the pain in my leg. I rolled out of bed, grabbing the ceramic lamp from the nightstand. A pathetic weapon, but better than nothing. Cassius was already awake. He was standing by the window, a dark silhouette against the city lights. But he wasn't panicking. He was holding something that looked decidedly unlike a fountain pen. "Stay down, Julian," he ordered quietly. "They cut the power," I hissed, limping toward him. "They're coming through the service elevator. It's the only bypass for the magnetic locks." "I know," Cassius said calmly. He turned, and the moonlight glinted off the barrel of a customized Sig Sauer. I stopped dead. "Since when do you use guns?" "Since I realized my secretary was an assassin," he quipped dryly. "I figured I should pick up a new hobby." A muffled explosion rocked the floor. The service elevator doors in the hallway blew inward. Smoke billowed into the grand foyer. "Get into the panic room," I ordered, trying to push him toward the hidden panel in the bookshelf. "Cassius, go? I can hold them off." "No," he snapped, grabbing my arm. "You can barely stand. I am trained for this," I shouted, the first time I had ever raised my voice at him. "You are a CEO. You sign checks. Get in the damn room." 3 figures emerged from the smoke, clad in tactical black gear, faces obscured by ballistic masks. The Lotus elites. Vipers. They didn't pause to negotiate. They raised their suppressed rifles. I shoved Cassius hard, sending him sprawling behind the heavy marble kitchen island just as the air filled with the thwip thwip thwip, /I of suppressed fire. Bullets chewed into the drywall where we had been standing a second before. I dove behind the leather sofa, adrenaline numbing the agony in my leg. I had no gun. I was trapped. "Julian," Cassius yelled from behind the marble. "Stay down," I screamed back. One of the Vipers advanced, moving with professional efficiency. He was flanking the sofa. I tensed, preparing to throw the lamp and rush him. A suicide play, but it might buy Cassius a shot if he actually knew how to use that gun. The Viper rounded the corner. I wound up to throw. Blam. Blam, /I. The deafening roar of unsuppressed gunfire filled the room. The Viper's head snapped back, his mask shattering as 2 rounds took him in the face. He crumpled to the floor. I stared in shock. Cassius had popped up from behind the island, his stance perfect, his grip firm. He wasn't shooting blindly. He was shooting to kill. "To left," Cassius shouted, his voice commanding. The remaining 2 Vipers scrambled for cover. They hadn't expected resistance. They thought they were coming for a soft target and a traitor. They didn't expect the dragon to have teeth. "Cover me," I yelled. I needed a weapon. The dead Viper had a sidearm. "Don't you dare," Cassius roared, but he fired a suppressing volley toward the hallway, pinning the assassins down. I lunged. My leg screamed in protest, fire shooting up my spine, but I hit the floor and rolled. I grabbed the dead man's pistol, a Glock 19, and checked the chamber. Loaded. I was back in my element. The pain faded into the background, replaced by the cold, mathematical precision of the kill. I signaled to Cassius. "Left flank," he nodded. He actually understood the hand signal. Who was this man? Cassius popped up and fired 2 shots, drawing their attention. I broke cover, sliding across the polished floor. I caught the second Viper exposed. I put 2 rounds in his chest and 1 in his neck. He went down. The third Viper, realizing the op was blown, turned to run back toward the elevator shaft. "Leaving so soon," I muttered. I raised the pistol, exhaled, and squeezed the trigger. The shot took him in the back of the knee. He fell screaming. Silence returned to the penthouse, heavy and ringing. The smell of cordite and blood replaced the scent of expensive candles. I sat there on the floor, panting, the gun dangling from my hand. My leg was throbbing in sync with my heartbeat, warm blood seeping through the bandage again. Cassius was there in an instant. He kicked the gun away from the injured Viper and then knelt beside me, his hands frantic as they checked me over. "Did you get hit?" he demanded, his eyes wide and wild. "Julian, look at me." "I'm fine," I wheezed, leaning my head back against the sofa. "Just..." Stitches popped. Cassius let out a shuddering breath and pulled me into a crushing embrace. He buried his face in the crook of my neck, shaking. "You idiot. You absolute idiot. You can shoot," I murmured into his shoulder, the shock starting to set in. My father insisted. He mumbled against my skin. But I never thought. I never wanted. He pulled back, gripping my face between his hands. When you lunged for that gun, I thought I lost you. You can't get rid of me that easily. I managed a weak smile. I'm under contract, remember? Cassius laughed, a wet, jagged sound. He leaned his forehead against mine. The contract is void. We're renegotiating. New terms. Oh, I raised an eyebrow, despite the pain. Term 1, Cassius whispered, his lips brushing against mine. No more secrets. Agreed, I breathed. Term 2, he continued, his thumb tracing my lower lip. You don't protect me. We protect each other. That sounds acceptable. And term 3, Cassius murmured, closing the distance, his kiss fierce and claiming, tasting of whiskey and survival. When he pulled back, his eyes were dark with a promise that terrified and thrilled me. You never leave my side. Not for the Lotus. Not for anyone. You belong to the dragon now. I looked at the carnage around us, the shattered glass, the dead men who had been my brothers in arms. I looked at the man who had stripped me bare, bound my wounds, and killed for me. I whispered, leaning back into his touch, I can live with that. And that is how the viper tamed the wolf, by realizing the wolf had teeth of his own. If you enjoyed seeing Cassius take control and defend what's his, destroy that like button. And tell me in the comments, would you forgive a lover who was originally hired to kill you? I'll be reading your answers. Subscribe for the next chapter. Until then,